we've got sign-on sheets. We need to make sure our different key stakeholders that we've got at the centre today, our field reports and our shift logs, the layout of the centre, where we're going to be stationed compared to the other stakeholders, and any backup for anything that's online, especially considering as we're doing register, find, reunite on the iPads. We do have a backup plan in case there's any failure of those electronics. We do have our paper sign sheets, but we need to remember that ideally it's online, so please do not refer to these sheets unless need be. We have our ops contact number, so this is the number that you will call for operations if I'm gone, and we have nominated Jane as second in command. Please be aware, one of the most important contacts would be the RSPCA here. We are anticipating to have a lot of pets here, and people are going to have a lot of concerns around that. Red Cross rules, pets are not allowed inside evacuation centres. So please make sure that this is communicated to the community members, alongside communicating this is who that they can turn to for assistance with their pets. I believe there's a translator being worked on for the evacuation centre, along with an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander liaison officer. So we need to watch out for stress of the people here, but also for yourselves, safety of people around the large number of animals that we're expecting. Keep in mind, these animals have come from their homes. They're now in a big evacuation centre. We're not sure if these animals are going to be caged or leashed. So we need to ensure the safety of our staff members, safety of those animals, and safety of their owners as well. And also to let people we will be talking with operations and the other stakeholders, anticipate number of days that we're going to be here, and when we can expect updates. A lot of the town, we're expecting that a lot of the people are very concerned about their hometown and as well as their properties. So if we can set the expectation of when we're going to be able to give them updates, that would be great. So that, to help minimize those stress levels and that comfort and safety amongst everyone at the centre. And that will help that. And also to be aware, given that we are expecting large numbers of elderly individuals and families with young children, we need to keep in mind different mobility issues as to where people are placed, and issues with young children and then being attended to. So please always keep that front of mind. Any questions?
And any questions? Okay, so that was a really good briefing. Some of the things that I picked up that I thought were really good, the way you articulated the risk around pets, 60% of people around Australia have pets. They're hugely important. They can be a source of considerable emotional comfort, but in relief centres, discomfort as well. And you articulated that really well as the potential consequences of having animals in relief centres. So that was really nice to be clear on for your team. Your initial execution of tasking was really, really clear. Your situation was pretty succinct. Your command and control was really clear as well. Your admin was pretty good, and then you kind of cycled back to elements that might be a part of execution and situation. I've done that so many times, I've lost count. As much as possible, we'll try and keep it to the sections, but I think if your team got that briefing, they'd feel pretty confident at what they had to do. So thank you very much. Over to room 2.
Yeah, hi. I'll start if everyone's okay. So, hi, my name's Cheryl and I'm the team leader for today. The situation that we have at the moment is a bushfire in regional Victoria, which has expanded recently due to high winds. So we've got a volatile situation, potentially changing, and we have the relief centre that's just been set up. The mission is to provide PFA until... Sorry, going back to situation. We've got likely some quite distressed people who will be coming in today. The mission is to provide PFA until advised further, and query RFR as well, but we're waiting to have that confirmed. And so we'll be doing the look, listen and link. So Also, it's to identify what other agencies we have available here and how we're connecting with each other and supporting each other. Execution, and so the communication is really, sorry, I'm getting myself all mixed up here. Execution. The centre manager, so communication with the centre manager and all the other agencies that are here, and with ongoing with ops as well. And feedback to the team will occur on an ongoing basis depending on the situation, developing situation. Administration, provide PFA to all residents, the farmers and the small business. Ensure that we've got PPE and especially breathing equipment and masks, and that we've got the kit available with all the required information that we need, and that we work in pairs where we can, especially if we've got to go out. That we've got all the resources and that we know what's available, including water and food, and the sign-on sheet that was mentioned. Incidents, any incidents are recorded and reported. I'd love to hear about them as well, please. And debrief of the team as ongoing, as I've mentioned. Command communication, 000 if it's required. And this, yeah, we should still be able to make those calls no matter what's happening with the mobile phones, I understand. So today I'm the team leader. I'd love to hear anything that you've got to, any concerns, any questions, please feedback to me. The phone number for ops if I'm not available, and I'll let you know if I have to step away. The second in charge will be Adele. If I'm not here, please reach out to her. So the communication, lack of mobile coverage may be an issue, and we may be working our way around that. The other aspect is the emotional needs of all the community who will be coming in, and their concern for family and friends, especially who live around regional Victoria. Safety, oh, sorry, that was part of safety. Yeah, concern for family and friends, emotional needs. And we'll be keeping a close eye on what the fire and the wind is doing and letting you know, informing you as we go along, and how we're going to deal with things if we don't have mobile coverage. We'll let you know as we go along about that. Other safety issues, the smoke, hydration, heat, and so I would love to identify also your strengths, your limitations, where you feel that you can work effectively, where you feel you might need some support so we can work well together. And I need you all to look after yourselves. Let me know if you've got any issues. Feedback to me on an ongoing basis as you need to, as information, and I'll feedback to you as information comes in. We'll debrief at the end of the day as well. Let me know if you need anything, have any concerns. So any questions at this point, please.
All right. I thought what was really solid about that briefing, especially the command and the safety elements. You really went into the safety elements and the consequences and what you were going to do to work around it. And I really liked that you were making a very solid attempt to communicate with your team about what they need too. So I thought that was really well done. Execution, what you can do is go, hey, we're here to do PFA and possibly RFR. Specifically, I'll get these two members to do this, these two this, and these two this. But if you're uncomfortable with that tasking, just let me know at the end of the briefing and we'll sort something out. So that's an option you have there too, Cheryl, as well. Or you can even potentially have the preference chat before the formal briefing if you've got time in the car or whatever. But thank you so much. And our last group, over to you.
Lucky last. Hi, my name's Chrissy. I'm your team leader for this run. Our current situation, we've had severe flooding in the area. We're in northern New South Wales. The persistent rainfalls caused the riverbanks to overflow, and we've got a relief centre here at the local community centre where we're receiving evacuees from around the neighbourhood. Our mission is to provide PFA and register fine reunite. There's been a concern with some families that have been separated, which is causing a bit of anxiety, so that's why we're setting that one up. Our execution is to look, listen and link. We've got a few agencies here, and I'll give you a list of those so that will assist you in your linking. With our administration, first off, I can get everyone to make sure they've got their sign-in sheets done and that we all share our contact numbers so that we can keep in touch. We need to identify how to get some more supplies. I'm having a talk with the centre management and also our ops in regards to the personal hygiene supplies because they're running low. We have the kits and the resources here available to us. There's water and snacks over on the far end of the hall, which people can access. There's toilets on this side of the building, and there's also disabled access toilets on the left of that in case you need to have anyone there that needs to have some assistance. If you do identify any gaps in any areas, don't hesitate to let me know so I can feed that up. With our communications, please come to myself in the first instance. Heather's my 2IC. If you need to urgently get hold of ops, their number's 12345. With our safety, of course, call 000 in any emergencies. We do have some risks here and that we've got quite a few elderly people and people with disabilities and people that are quite distressed. So the ramp access out the front is going to be really important for those with disabilities and the age to make sure they get access to the building safely. There's seats that are being set up. If we make sure we can prioritise those for the elderly and the disabled. Self-care, extremely important. We'll be taking breaks, designated breaks throughout the day, but if you need a bit more time, just please let me know. We do have floodwaters in the area, so by all means, please don't go play in it. Keep out of that. We want to keep everybody here and safe. Does anybody have any questions?
That was a real sharp, concise SMEAX. Thank you very much to your team, Chrissy. You know, you stuck to the headings. You were really clear at each point. Yeah, very, very, very succinct. The other bit that I would add around your safety, it's really common that we talk about community safety factors first because we're focusing on them. For your briefing, it's often better to focus on our safety issues first and then safety issues for the community because we want to be instilling in our team members our safety number one, community safety a very close number two. But overall, that from all of you, really well done, and thank you for participating in that little activity. Really, any thoughts or reflections from the group? Was that useful, not useful, okay?
I found it useful, but honestly, it would be easier to do, or is easier to do, when you've got like a SMEAX form there that you're pulling the information from, in the sense of it's breaking it up, and it's like I just pulled up the SMEAX form off Reds, and of course it has the titles, but then it actually has that statement about what that title means.
Yeah.
And that's where I kept coming unstuck too, I think, before doing it, trying to do it off memory of what you'd said each thing meant, and then where do you fit it? Whereas if you, for me, having that in front of me and seeing that, I go, oh, okay, command and communications, identify this. Right, got it.
Yeah. So we made it harder for you.
Yes, for me, yes.
Yeah, no, and that's fair too. So, you know, when I go into the field, I usually have a little card with the acronym on the back of it. And I find that really useful, and you're saying that you find the same. So it's good to see that correlation.
Not just the acronym, it's the defining of it, because I wrote the acronym down before and only basically went, so mission was what, execution how, and then sitting there looking at that little bit of information going, where does this fit, or what do I put there? Whereas for me, it was then having that actually almost that step backwards. It's the acronym, but then the specific kind of, I guess, of what you're looking at to pull out of the info you've got.
Yeah, a template that just has a few words of like, we will, key contact for is, like that kind of thing. Absolutely. Now, just to go back to some of the questions, LJ, a relief centre, it can be a place of refuge where people are spending time sleeping overnight, or a relief centre can also be a place where people come to connect to services and then continue to somewhere else. It
So
varies a little from state to state.
So my question is, when I had a place of refuge, we didn't supply anything to the people. They had to have it all with them when we were in Atherton.
Yeah, and that's because it was probably a cyclone shelter, and cyclone shelters are developed or designed as a place of last resort, or a place where people go, which has minimum. It's a place for final safe place to be.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in South Australia, there are a number of places of they call them places of last resort.
Yep.
Or places of refuge, which means if people haven't had the opportunity to leave their homes before, or they have left it too late, here is a place that we believe will be safe.
Yeah, it was for our travellers. We had a lot of tourists up there on the road, and if they felt they couldn't stay in their caravans or their camping grounds, we had that open, but we were specifically told not to supply water or food to them because they had to bring their own. Whereas an evacuation centre is different, isn't it? We supply water and food through the other services.
Yeah, or the appearance of.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you're right, LJ. As a general, evacuation centres or relief centres or places where people stay for longer than 3 or 4 hours, there is usually food and water supplied by other agencies, not always by Red Cross, and often not by Red Cross in some states and territories.
Now, I know that we've got some hands up here. I'm just going to draw this to a close. I'm happy to take that question from Peg next. But overall, this was a really effective demonstration of all of you creating SMEACs in a really short period of time and briefing this whole group. To get good at it takes time and practice. So if you don't feel like you got it perfect the first time, you were 90% of the way there, and far better than if you had no structure at all. So keep practicing this, keep giving it a go, and you will get better over time. But really awesome and well done. Peg, over to you.
Thank you, Sean. This is maybe a minor question, but I think almost all of us included the ops phone number under command and communications. And the team leaders I have worked with have been really firm that team members do not call ops. They follow the chain of command.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which is why we've got team leaders and second in commands. Is that?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think that there's nothing wrong in saying, look, please don't use this number unless there's a very specific reason, but all requests should come through me. I think a good team leader briefs their whole team on potential escalation points just in case things go a little bit sideways. But yeah, as a general rule, that's the chain.
All right, thank you.
All righty.
All right.
Over to you, Sally.
Thanks, Sean. Before we do, I've asked Sarah to do a 1-minute stretch. This is not our formal break. We're going to have a 10-minute break in a very short time, but Sarah loves a good stretch. So I've asked Sarah if she can do a 1-minute stretch for us.
Oh, you want? Okay, so I thought we were going to break for a minute and everyone needed to do a stretch. Okay, all right, sounds great. I think we all need to stand up, and whether you're in camera or not in camera, just please stand up, everyone, and just sort of move your hips a little bit, because we've been sitting for an hour and a half. Move it around, down to your left, down to your right. Stretch your arms up and just stretch it up. All right. And forward. This is all about your well-being. It's good. And shake it off.
Thank you, Sarah. And before you take a seat, I want you to go to your front door and find something you can outside your front door that you can see and put it in the chat. Go. Go, run.
Adele, are you sitting at your front door already?
I'm not. No, I'm not. And I'm not going downstairs because it's a fair way down there and I'd have to get back up, and I'm not doing that. I'm making a stand. I'm taking, yeah. Can I just ask a question, though, that's been burning, Sarah?
Of course.
Yes, of course you can, Adele.
Also,
Yeah.
in this SMEACs,
Yeah.
where do we put, or how do we identify? I mean, in all of these scenarios, we're going to a location. Back in my question, number one, who drives us there? Number two, do we use the Red Cross car? If we're not using that, then we need to use our own private vehicle. And we also must be sure that we have all the documentation now that New South Wales requires. So is this something, Sally and Sarah, that goes in the SMEC, or is it something that we, because for us here on the North Coast, it's often we're driving somewhere.
Okay, so for you as a team leader, you would have got that as part of your briefing from the operations person. Your role then, as part of the SMEAC that you're delivering to your team members, is to provide the information you've been given through operations.
Right. So that means I'm not necessarily the driver.
No, not necessarily.
Right. Thank you. That's
But it doesn't. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't, depending on what the activation is, how far away you are from the location to where you're going. Is it worse to drive back into Sydney to pick up a car and then go to the location, and all of those things? But there has to be negotiation and conversation about whether people are willing to use their own cars, and also the reimbursement for that.
Yeah, and if they've got their, the two documents that they really do need, if they're doing it under comprehensive insurance,
Absolutely.
So those things are really important, I think, and that's why I wondered whether they're on the SMEAC, but they're not.
No, but you would have received that piece of information as part of your briefing as a team leader.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Sally.
Okay. All right, what did everybody see? Just in the chat, what did you see? What's outside your front door?
I know, we've got some good examples here.
I have beautiful Lake Macquarie outside my front door.
I don't need to go to my front door. I have 3 windows all the way around my home.
Yeah, all my
and I'm looking at scenery for the whole day. It's a really good room I'm in. I love it. All plants.
I really love Emil's, the latte glass from this morning. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to have a formal break after this next session. So a formal break of about 10 minutes in about 20 minutes. All right, so we're just going to move on now and talk about some of the things you'll need to do when you're on shift. We already know that we've got that team leader shift activation checklist, which I spoke about earlier. But these are some of the things, these are the tasks that you might be undertaking with your teams when you get to your location. So you may be doing psychological first aid, you may be doing register, fire, and reunite, you may be doing outreach, you may be making some referrals. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly because we're going to then break these down and talk a little bit more about what they mean from an individual perspective as we go through. You'll need to complete a shift log. And I spoke about a shift log earlier. After about 4 days, something happens to the F. Don't know what happens to that F, but somehow it goes somewhere. And then you've also got safety incident reporting using Speak Up. And I think Sean mentioned that we are going to talk more about Speak Up, and also when we talk about safeguarding, and Sean spoke about it with safety. And the last one, please, Chris, is our field reports. Shift cadence. Does anybody know what shift cadence means? It's a great word, don't you reckon? I love it. It's one of my favorites.
The order, like how it all plays out, the order of events.
Yeah, the order of events. And when we're talking about shift reports, it's about when do I need to have my reports to the operations officer so they can then feed that into the larger situation report. So it's really important that you're collecting information and data all of the time. and then you will be told what time that information needs to get to you, into your hot little hands, so you have time to check it, and then feed that through to the operations officer in a timely manner, because you will be asked to get that information through at a certain time. So as a pace of reports, thanks, Paula, there will be a time set. I always then take an hour or half an hour off the time that I need to have it to the operations officer. So that's reports from my individual teams about any referrals they may be doing, anything I need to be reporting that's not of an emergency or urgent nature that I've written down in my shift log. So that would go into my field report. We're going to talk more about that in a while. Next one, please, Chris. So let's just talk about referrals. Now, referrals, there's some referral guidelines. And I'm just going to, Chris, can I just have all those referral guidelines, please? And does anybody know what we mean by referral guidelines? Or what is a referral?
When you are directing someone else to another service provider.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of things we need to be considering when we're thinking about referrals. And we're going to talk about those in a moment. So this document here is a national document, and it has a list of national referral pathways. As a briefing from your ops team, you will be also given a referral pathways document for the location that you're working in at the time. So that referral pathways document may change depending on your location. So there'll be some national referrals, things like Lifeline, which as we know is in every state and territory. The suicide line, here we've got the one from Victoria. It may be a suicide prevention line in the state and territory you're working with. It may be a referral pathway to a community or local community organisation. That information you'll be given so that you can then share that with your teams. So if we need to make those referrals, we will be able to do that in a way that's timely and, as a general rule, localised. Localised referrals will have a better outcome, and it will mean that our people who've been affected by the disaster will continue to be able to use those services moving forward. Your standard operating procedure, there is a standard operating procedure, and so you will find this document, and we'll talk about the lounge later, but there is a document that you'll be able to find which is called a referral list or referral pathways. It may not be complete because those referral pathway documents will be added to or taken away depending on what location you're working with at the time. So what are your responsibilities as a team leader? Keeping the contact information up to date. So if things change, you will need to keep that document up to date. So for example, you may be working in a relief centre, recovery centre, and you find that there is a new agency that you didn't even know about. And putting that name of that agency, the things that they are able to provide support with, and linkages to their contact details and operating hours. Please make sure you feed that back to the operations team in part of your field reports, because that's information that they will want to collect for next time they're working in that location, or it might form part of the next day's SMEAC. So really important that you do that. Keeping referral forms secure. So each state and territory has referral forms. They are slightly different in each state and territory. And the reason for that is that some of those commissioning agencies require referral information in a different way. So just be aware that there is a referral form. You just need to know that there is a referral form, how it needs to be filled out, and where does it go? Where does this referral document go? Make sure that, and that means that there will be some guidelines on who gets access to that information. We would always, even if we were sending it through to a commissioning agency on site that has asked Red Cross to perform this task, the information would go to them we would always also send it through to our operations team as well. And making sure if it's a paper referral, that you have a safe place to keep that information secure and confidential. Really important that we do that. We also need to make sure we maintain a record of the number of referrals made during a shift. The other thing we need to consider as a team leader is that some people may need a number of different referral pathways. And I think back to COVID, when we were doing a lot of the telephone support for people who were in hotel quarantine. And on each individual day, I was getting all those referrals as it was coming actually back to me as the Red Cross commander, which was a bit unusual. But there would be one person was requiring referral to 5 different services. So I was having to make sure that I made sure there was a referral pathway and a referral document sent to 5 different services so that people could access those services being in hotel quarantine. That's a very unusual scenario. But there may be people who you are talking to in outreach or recovery centres or relief centres that require more than one referral. Your role is to make sure that we don't let any of them slip. So make sure that we get those referrals from our teams, our team members. Hopefully they'll be, if they're doing outreach, for example, they'll be using iPads, and they will be filling out those referrals and outreach forms in something called Fulcrum. Fulcrum is an online data collection form, and it allows you to have some conversations as well as pointing people into doing those referral pathways in real time. Not only is that better for the person who you're taking a referral for, but it means that we've got that documentation that we don't have to worry about. It's secure, it's safe, and we can send those referrals through. So think about that when you're. I had a question in the chat. Are those referral forms and the referral pathways in the kits? No, because remember they may change, and some states and territories, because of the disaster management arrangements, and depending on who their commissioning agencies are, those forms may be different from state to state. So it's a question that you'll need to remember to ask when you're receiving a briefing, a SMEACS briefing, and the question component from the person who's providing you with that particular piece of information. Any questions on referrals?
I suppose to clarify, Sally, from my perspective, I know when I've deployed to a few different states, there's usually a list of service providers.
Absolutely.
And that's often in an activation kit. And I think you've touched on this too, it's really a good idea to confirm if those are current anyway, because sometimes those kits might not have been dusted off for 6, 12 plus months. And you don't want to refer people to services that aren't appropriate or aren't current, because it just causes further distress.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Sean. There's a couple of really good comments there. Refer a person to service and help with their need or problem. Absolutely. Where possible, confirm the referrals and where it's able to be offered, so that they can do it and very quickly. And refers to external agencies, so in a recovery centre, sending someone to Services Australia Community Recovery, Lifeline Housing that are not on site as a referral. If we're just having a conversation with somebody in a recovery centre, for example, or a relief centre where we have those other agencies, there's no need to fill out a formal referral request form. Then somebody asked, is there an opportunity to have training around Fulcrum? Yes, I know that Victoria do some training around Fulcrum, and I know that Chris Brandt is very excited that he will be doing some training around Fulcrum if required. Just anybody looking at Chris's face? Yeah, look at that. But yeah, that's something that we can do. Most states will run Fulcrum training. All right, any other questions around referrals? Let's have a look at that, some of that on-shift reporting. And I did touch on this just at the beginning. You will have something called a shift log. Your shift log may not look exactly the same as this. This is the one that's actually out of the aimed training program. So this should be something that looks like this. We're trying very hard to standardize a shift log so that if you go to a different state and territory, you're going to be having something that looks exactly the same as this one. I think the important things is that we have the incident name, the location, the date and time you prepare it, the person who prepared it, the role, and their operational period. Chris, can I get you to just go through those next bits, please? Add those little bits in. So what do we put into a shift log? And once we've got them all there, we're going to talk about whether it would give you enough information for you to be able to take over. For example, if you were a team leader coming in and you were taking over a particular team, because a shift log stays with the role, it doesn't stay with the person. That's an important step there. So where it says individual name there, at the moment we've got Fatima Newman, we would be, if we were taking over and we were the next group of people in, and we were the next team leader to take over that team, we would just cross that out, initial it, and we would put our name into that particular section as an individual name. So it's really important that a shift log stays with the role, not you as you. All right, we've got a few bits and pieces here. So at 8:20, this person had a phone call with ops, and the ops person's name was Sarah, and they reported they've been busy on site. Fires may change today. Require any info about concerns for field report. If I was handing that over, is that enough information, do you think? Would anybody like any more than that?
The more information, the better, usually.
Yeah, but don't make it war and peace.
Maybe sort of like the amount of people we've had through.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So remember, dot points, keep it short and sweet. But I always think, who will be reading this other than me? That's how I always look at my shift logs. I understand what I write down on my notes, but I give them to other people and they go, what? What did that mean? What are you talking about? So I always then run that critical eye over it to say, would other people be able to understand what it is that I've written? So this one here, at 12:38, spoke with Matt from council, expecting bus of packs. Packs. Anybody know what packs is?
People.
Yeah, people. But did everybody else know that that was people?
I mean, the inference I'd make is that likely the team leader might have worked in the airline industry.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what I thought too. So, it takes you another 4 letters to write people. Please write people. And do we want to know where those people are arriving from? It may be that it's just there is only one location they're coming from, and that's perfectly okay. But if not, put that information in. Hand over for new team leader. So that's information they thought they were going to give to the new team leader. I've come in, spoke with Matt from council. I'd like to know which council, because sometimes there maybe more than one. Packs. Packs, is that a packed lunch? Is that the packed lunch trying to arrive? Fantastic. Because it's 12:38, it's lunchtime. And if it's not arriving until overnight, I want to know that. Just mentioned several people concerned about mobile internet not working and can't access Victorian emergencies. That's the website or the email address that Victoria use in an emergency. Every state and territory has one that's very similar, and you would know what that is. You would be given a briefing. That is part of your briefing. And mention in field report. So you can see there's probably a little bit more detail that you might want to add to that, but please make sure that it's not war and peace. I always, in mine, when I do it, I also have another column, because Sally likes extra columns. One, I write the word A for action and I for information. So if there is an action that I am leaving for another team leader to continue to do, I write the right word, letter A. And then if I'm providing something that's just information that will make their day or easier or a concern or around something that's happened in the field, maybe it's with some perhaps a couple of team members, I write the word I, but I also need to make sure that what A and I mean as well, so people don't get confused with Sally just writing A and I in it. But just think about what you're writing in there. It needs to be in pen. It can be used as in coronial inquiries, and it can be used at royal commissions. So don't write. I spoke with Matt from council. I think he's a bit of a, I really don't like him. He's just told us again, what an idiot, that blah, 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 blah. That is not what we're going to put into a shift log. We may want to when we're tired. We may verbalize that, but we never put that in. Of course, in our inside voice, never our outside voice, but we would never write it down. Okay.
And just to pick up on what Adele has said in the chat, I can't speak to whether it does or does not, but when I'm finishing my shift log for the shift, I'll usually write a small heading with handover and kind of a combination of what Sally said, outstanding actions, key things I would want the next person to know, because sometimes when you hand over, you won't get to do a verbal one. And so it's nice if you know there's going to be an 8 or a 16-hour gap, that the next person won't be completely stranded. So I always think, kind of like what Sally said, who is going to read this and what would I hope they'd be able to do with it?
Yeah, nice work, Sean. And the other thing is, it doesn't supersede the handover doc. There at the back of a shift log, there is also a handover and takeover doc as well. So there is, in the back of that is those two things. And no event number on this document. Yes, and you would put the event number if there was one. Sometimes there isn't if RFR hasn't been stood up. So that's just a nice to know. Do we need to sign it? Absolutely. One of the things I do, if there is blank underneath, perhaps I've got half a page, and then I'm signing off, I put a cross through the bottom and I sign and date and write the time when I have handed over the shift log to another team leader. I mean, it's good practice, but it's also called covering my bits, my behind. Jackie.
Yeah, hi. I had an experience in my last deployment. There was a gap between team leaders and team members meeting.
Yep.
And it was it was treated like an evacuation centre. So people were going in and out. Like, to leave a document that's like a legal document behind and there's no one around to take ownership of. It's quite uncomfortable to do that, especially if it's like a legal document. So in that event, you feed back to your duty officer and then they can email it to the team the next shift, or how would you suggest?
I would suggest in that particular instance, and this would probably be set up in beforehand if you can. If not, then I would be taking a picture of all the pages that I had written, and I would send that through to my operations officer, then take those pages out and then leave a blank. So that could be emailed through to the next team leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else that people have got around shift logs? It's really important, Doc. All right, the next one is field reports. So this is a report that you will be completing. This may look different to the ones you're currently doing, but there is a field report, and it is one that has been written by the response team. So this is a fairly new document that you will need to familiarize yourself with. But if you haven't got this document right now, it doesn't matter, because you can still use your own document that you have in your state and territory until you can get hold of these field reports, because really most of the information here is exactly the same. So for example, where it says reported to state operations or the divisional operations officer, the new one will say reported to state ops, or whoever it is that you report to in your state and territory, because every state and territory has set up their teams in slightly different ways. I think the important component is, what do we need to capture? And we need to capture things like the total number of people who entered the centre. If that's important for us as Red Cross, or if it's important for us to capture as part of our arrangements with our commissioning agency. If it's an evacuation centre, we absolutely want to know how many people stayed overnight, the number of people staying overnight, all agencies. So that's if we are an evacuation centre management team, for example. If we're doing outreach, number of properties visited, absolutely we want to know how many people how many properties we visited, the number of people that we spoke to, and the number of referrals that we made. Now, there is a lot more information. That's just the top part of that form. There is a lot more information that those forms capture, and you will be told by your state operations person about how much information they need from you when you are filling out that particular field report. Okay, so ask the question, do I need to fill in number of people staying overnight? Is this outreach? Well, the answer, of course, is no. Jane.
Yeah, just a question. So when we're filling out the psychological first aid to people, it's really just look, listen, link. Is that right? I mean, listen, look, link, whatever. Yeah, no, the other way around.
There's two things. Quite often you may be asked by your commissioning agency how many, because we're quite often doing something like meet and greet at the door. They may want to know how many people came into the centre, just entered the centre. What we want to capture from a Red Cross perspective is how many people did Red Cross have an interaction with? How many people did we do that look, listen and link with? Okay. And there's going to be some further points that the response team will be looking at to give you some better criteria for you to better capture that information, Jane. Okay. And then, of course, if you're doing it in a fulcrum setting, that's the way we would do it. So this field report completely translates over into a fulcrum form. So if you're doing it online, which of course is the easiest way to do it, because it's immediate and your operations officer is able to capture that information in real time. Okay. All right, any questions about field reports? I think the big thing is, when do I need to have this done by? What is my deadline? I think that's a question that you need to be asking on a regular basis to get that shift cadence. I'm going to hand over to Sean, because one of the things we'll be putting into that shift report is something that we call community sentiment.
Alrighty. I've spent a lot of time being a team leader, but probably a little bit more time being an operations officer, and I've collected hundreds of field reports. One of the key things that we ask our team leaders for is what's happening in the community. And in Vic, as a part of that, we've developed a guidance for our operations personnel for collecting community sentiment to help them to ask good questions to our team leaders. And now I'm going to share some of that with you. But first of all, when we say community, what does that mean to you? I mean, I suppose broadly, communities are not necessarily a single thing, are they? They're collections of individuals that have multiple points of identification and affiliation. So we could be looking at an array of different people who are presenting in the relief centre who are geographically located in that space. They might share aspects of religion, they might share aspects of interest, they might share language. There's any number of things that they may share. And it's important that when we're thinking about community, we think about it in a multifaceted way, so that we're trying to be as inclusive as we can when we're assessing both the strengths of communities, but also their potential needs. Big picture, what info would we need to collect to pass up to operations to help them to understand what's happening on the ground?
What is a trend of someone's, how are they all feeling, concerns that's coming from the community themselves? So, for example, I'm concerned about my husband is missing, children, needs that they need.
Yeah, so needs, concerns, the services that are being provided. You might be hearing sentiment about the quality of those services, which could range from stellar to less than ideal. Capturing that information helps to give a snapshot about how the community is feeling about the response, which is useful. Sometimes I'll contact a team leader and they'll be like, people are a little bit anxious. Want to know to be able to use informed response. Yeah, exactly. Can you give me a little bit more information about that? Just going to click that. Can you tell me what their top 3 concerns are? Yeah, community anger over what's happening. If they're angry, what is it that they're angry about specifically? Is it because the services aren't appropriate? They're not present? They're not getting to the people that need it? You want to be asking those follow-up questions or listening out for those details in your interactions. All right, but why do we collect this information? Are we just, listening for gossip? No.
To support the people down on the ground, like to support us immediately and also for future planning.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. Hang on, let me just have a quick look. I just want to check in with everyone. I think we're probably due for a break, and I know we'd all like to finish up as soon as we can, and we're almost there. How do you feel about taking a quick 10-minute break just to refresh, grab a drink, and then we'll finish off? Is that okay? All right, 10 minutes from this point in the
So you
chat.
stand up and leave your desk, put yourself on mute, shake it off.
Right, back in a few. All right, everyone, we're pretty much on the home stretch.
Yes, 10 minutes.
So what does the rest of this session look like? Well, we're going to talk about community sentiment just a little bit more. Then we're going to look at some incident reporting using Speak Up. Then we're going to look at child safeguarding. And then we will wrap up with one or two bits and pieces. And then that's basically us calling it a day. So community sentiment, getting back into what we were saying and acknowledging what you've stated in the chat. It's about understanding needs so that we can build resilience and so that we can be meeting the needs of community and identifying unmet needs. When I was up during some floods 2022, we had a lot of people who were working from the Asia Pacific, picking fruit and stuff like that. Their entire work was taken away from them, but they still had to pay bills because they were still renting where they were. And so we identified that that was a considerable unmet need. And given the damage to all of the fruit plantations and stuff around the place, that could be a potential issue for several months post. So that kind of community sentiment can be helpful, where you're identifying patterns and trends in unmet need. Now, an example of some good community sentiment, we'll have a look at the first one. Or several. So you can see here, and I won't read out each part of it, but it's about giving what you're seeing, what are the potential consequences, what could be done to improve things, or what is being done well. So here, there's a shortfall in assistance for second language needs. Here, what's the underlying issue of this community sentiment that's on the screen at the moment? Oh, and thanks for that, Michelle.
Communication.
Yeah.
Lack of, yeah.
And that communication could be because it's just not being promoted. It could be it's not being promoted in the right channels. If you're, as a team leader, if you have the bandwidth to listen out, maybe try and see if you can tease out the possibilities around that. Is it because the resources aren't in the appropriate language? I once was a part of a response where the words used in some of the written communications were only in English, and the words were really quite sophisticated, like year 10, year 12 reading level, so people couldn't understand it. So sometimes that could be an issue too. All right, next one. Yeah. What I really like about this feedback is they use the adjective. They say it's hard, but then they say why. And that's important too, to understand the why. And then to identify potential people who are going to be particularly disadvantaged for this process. And that's this bit of community sentiment is the kind of thing that when you pass up to operations and planning starts writing the situation reports that goes up through command and potentially to the state level or the regional level for coordination, this information can help shape services going forward. And it sometimes only happens because of the excellent eyes and ears on the ground with our Red Cross teams looking at these needs and assessments. All right, next one. Rachel, you say it's not necessarily intentional, it just happens in terms of picking up the trends, or what do you mean by that?
I was more sort of referring to like the earlier up about lack of awareness of things and how hubs and stuff are advertised, I guess, and community recovery often will post on social media on their site and then it gets shared across to community forums and stuff. But I know myself, even I've known that the hub is open, and I've tried to find the information online easily and haven't been able to find it. So I don't know whether it's intentional that they're only saying this hub is open or this hub's open, but they seem to miss out. And that in some aspects was, I think, part of and the issue with like Sherwood Hub was it just, I don't know, you just couldn't find it easily. But also, I mean, in general, just how you find out stuff. Like my key way of finding out info and community sentiment is I have either already joined community forums or when there's obviously an event that's weather event happening where it's possible that we'll be going out there, I try and sort of hook into the community forum for that area. That way I've found has been invaluable to find out because people, of course, you've got keyboard warriors and all the rest of it, but people actually air their grievances in their community forum. And so being able to pick up on certain trends from that way and bring it back our end and say, look, I haven't actually heard it being said in the hub, but I have seen on the community forum, there's quite a lot of people or one person is just trying to egg everyone on about such and such. So getting some base information from there has been invaluable sometimes.
I think the thing I take from that, Rachel, too, is that you are being really clear about the source of the information, the extent to which it's being said, and how many people are saying it. So you're giving the context, and that's really important. When we're looking at trends, is it you just heard it once in an 8-hour shift, or you've seen 5, 6, 7, 8+ examples? So that really helps provide the context for community sentiment as well. And all of this information and more is outlined in that guidance document. And yeah, absolutely, Chris. We have to be cautious about what other people are saying, We really want to focus on what we're seeing and hearing within the relief centre or where your team is currently at, because the most powerful thing that you can do is to be providing that really local contextualized info. Now, if you're seeing people talk about community forums, well, that's a part of that too, potentially. Examples about increase in family violence issues, and then potentially linking that to other increased issues that you're seeing can be vitally important for making sure appropriate services and interventions are in place. I can't speak to if it's sitting there for NSW Adele, so we'll have to follow that one up. Jane, I might pass to you just after we finish this last bit, but for sure. Something that I noticed, and this is linked to the last one around people experiencing mental health challenges, is I was responding to an area where there was significant flooding, and this significant thing that was starting to come through a couple weeks later were people reporting that they were finding it challenging to get through it because it reminded them of a similar event that happened in 2011. So for a lot of people in that community, compound trauma was a recurring theme. And passing that community sentiment up is also important. Sometimes it seems obvious, but it helps people in departments and services to have that greater context of recovery service planning. Now, I'll pass over to Rachel for an example of community sentiment.
Oh, sorry, do you mean me?
My bad.
Jane? Yeah, no, this came up in the Cyclone Jasper Recovery Hub, which I thought I passed up the line because it was affecting the people who needed it most. And that is, I heard at least 3 sets of people who came in who had their houses completely flooded out, was that they hadn't put in a claim yet. It was probably 2 months after, because they couldn't pay the excess. Like I had one woman in tears saying, no, I haven't put in the claim because I don't have 5,000 cash to pay the excess. So they didn't know about how the insurance industry worked, in that it could come off money that they were given later. So, I mean, I suppose as in the future where it's not just someone's shed or their roof is off when their whole house is destroyed and they haven't even put in a claim 2 months later. I think it's something that is going to occur in lots of communities because they don't understand the insurance industry.
Yeah, and that identifying those gaps in understanding is a nuance that could easily be missed. I think that's a great example, Jane. Thank you for sharing. All right, Sally, is there anything you want to touch on before we pass over to you for risk?
Sean?
Yep.
Sean, Adele, just going back to what Jane was saying a while ago, legal aid here in New South Wales, particularly in the Northern Rivers area, they are running a lot of community workshops which are free for people in community. And we're running one next month, actually, and it talks largely about insurance, house protection, power of attorneys, all sorts of topics that a lot of people are frightened to ask questions about. So just keep an eye out on what legal aid in your area does, Jane, because some of these workshops, I attended one last November here in Nambucca, and it was one of the best workshops. I learned so much about just general insurance, just general house and contents insurance and what to be aware of. So yeah, just keep an eye out for those. Sian Whitehouse in particular, she's a leader here in our valley and area. So they do some wonderful work for people, but most people don't know the workshops exist until we, share that with our networks.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Sally, it's over to you. The classic on mute. There we go.
Thank you. You can hear me now, Sean. We're going to revisit that risk scenario that we did earlier in the day, but we're going to ask some slightly different questions this time. And we're going to break you into small groups, but we're only going to give you a very short amount of time because the task for this particular exercise is to have a look at this particular scenario. And we want you to identify the key items that you should be including in a field report. That's all we want you to do. So there's probably a few dot points there that you can gather. So if you haven't already taken a picture of the scenario, you might want to do so now if you can't remember it before we pop you into your room. But you've only got 5 minutes because remember we've already looked through this scenario in quite a bit of detail this morning. And this is about using the same scenario to just to highlight what you would then be putting into a shift report or a field report. Sean, can you put people into break